Hey, hi. Did you miss me? Maybe, probably, hopefully. YouTube certainly didn't. I feel like because I don't upload as often, YouTube is like, yeah, we're not gonna push an algorithm, which is like, thanks, I guess. But it's me. Hi. So, as you can tell by the title of this video, I'm gonna try to predict 7.0 in Final Fantasy XIV. Now, we even didn't even have 6.1 yet, which means that we kind of have no idea where the story will lean after the events of Endwalker, and therefore my predictions right now might sound more like a rambling of a madman, but I like to think that I'm bold, and so I would like to go ahead and make my predictions before 6.1 drops, so that if I get anything right, anything at all, even the smallest, tiniest thing, I can boast about it for years to come. So with that being said, here's my 7.0 predictions. But before we do that, I would like to give a shout out to today's sponsor, who is me. Yes, hi, you watch my videos. How about you go down and click the link to my Twitch channel where I can stream? You can come to my Twitch, ask me for my political views, call me a cock, and then get abused by me for the remainder of the time for which I will stream. You can also follow me on Twitter. I'm gonna post my new schedule there soon, and also I'm gonna post information about my novel, which I'm gonna be publishing hopefully soon. And I also repost a lot of Yuri, which is good. So follow me, you fucklords. And as a show of good faith, I'm gonna give you a little gift just for you. This gift is an extra prediction that does not have to do anything with 7.0, but instead has to do something with the current raid that we're doing in Final Fantasy XIV called Pandemonium. So Pandemonium made several appearances throughout Final Fantasy, of course, but I think it's fairly clear that the current Pandemonium in Final Fantasy XIV is themed after Final Fantasy II Pandemonium. I mean, it's underworld, hellish prison. Yeah, it is really similar to Final Fantasy II's Pandemonium. So to that end, here's my prediction. The final boss is going to be La Habrea. La Habrea, for some reason, accidentally or not, separated himself in two halves, with one half being kind of good, maybe a question mark, maybe purely rational. You know, rational La Habrea, just logic or some bullshit, I don't know. And the other part of La Habrea is evil, and that evil part of La Habrea is what resides at the heart of Pandemonium. This would allow us to meet La Habrea in the current raid without also creating a time paradox of La Habrea not recognizing us in 2.0 or 3.0 when he met us back then. Also, it would keep up with the themes of Final Fantasy II Emperor Mateus, how he divided himself into his devilish and angelic sides and all of that. But with that being said, 7.0 predictions. Where do we go from that? Crazy, am I right? So all the predictions that you're gonna make will be based around what Emet-Selch said. And I think that a lot of people kind of already speculated that most likely 7.0 is going to be an expedition expansion. We're not gonna start any new storylines just yet. It's kind of going to be like Heavensward, which was kind of fairly self-contained, and so this is going to be just about us traveling and solving minor issues compared to, you know, everything that happened in Endwalker, which I'm fine with. A little bit of time to relax, not saving the whole of existence, you know, that's good. So to that end, a lot of people have been liching onto what Emet-Selch said in regards to the places that we haven't visited yet and all of that. I'm actually going to link a Twitter post down in the comments, not the comments, descriptions. Go check it out. I think it's really good. It's It's a person. They are describing where the certain location might be and what locations we know of in the world other than the current ones where we are at, those being Eorzea, Othard, and Ilsabard. But with that being said, a lot of people have been speculating that we're going to go to Mercidia and that Mercidia is going to be the place in 7.0. We're going to explore Mercidia, which I say, that is probably correct. It's probably going to be Mercidia. But I like being a dumb fuck, so I'm going to go a step further and say that we're not going to visit only Mercidia, and that 7.0 is going to be about us visiting several places, maybe 2 or 3 places in Mercidia, but also several other places in other areas. So other than Mercidia, who will most likely act as a main hub, who else are we gonna visit? Well, the other big place, which I'm fairly confident about calling out, is the New World, or more specifically, the place where Blue Mages and the Beast tribe of Mamolja come from. I think those are 2 fairly safe bets to make. Do note, though, that the City of Gold that Emet-Selch mentioned, that is located in the New World, I think is not going to be part of the main story and will probably be used for a raid, be it 8-man or 24-man raid, or maybe trial storyline. But I am fairly confident saying that 7.0 is going to be divided between Mercidia and the New World. Other possible places that we could visit that could make an appearance, well, there are Valnain and Naxxla, which are the places where Viera are at. Those are, if I'm correct, the jungles of Viera and the areas close to the mountains of Viera. There's also Koshu, which is a nation past Kugane, which is themed after isolationist period of Japan. There is Corvus, which is Gróha's homeland, as well as more other minor locations that you can check out once again by checking out the Reddit post down below. Those could make an appearance, but I'm less confident on them. They could make an appearance in like a raid or a trial instead of a main story. I'm also predicting that we might be visiting Garlemald heavily. You know, Garlemald restoration will probably be a thing. I'm fairly confident in saying that. Emmet also mentioned, if I'm being correct right now, mountains north of Othard, which, if I'm correct, will be the mountains of Viera. And interestingly enough, mountains north of Othard are fairly cold. And taking the lore from Final Fantasy XI, and I'm a little bit hazy on information here, but I'm fairly sure that in Final Fantasy XI, the infamous Gigas come from those colder places, and we know for a fact that in Final Fantasy XIV, Gigas are located in Mordora, which is not necessarily cold, I guess, but it has crystals. We can pretend that it's cold. And Gigas also have a hot fiery god, so maybe they have a hot fire god because they live in a cold place. Listen, I just want Gigas. I think they look cool as fuck. I just want Gigas. So here's my prediction. 2 of the 3 beast tribes for a 7.0 is going to be Gigas, and it's going to be Mamolja. There's a prediction. So those are mostly all of my predictions for 7.0 in terms of where we're gonna go. A lot of people have been saying that it's going to be just Mercidia. I personally think that it's going to be probably a split between Mercidia and the New World. I think that making it just Mercidia is going to be too predictable. And I learned from my previous predictions to not be predictable when thinking about what might happen in Final Fantasy XIV. But I do think that once again, City of Gold is probably best set for a trial storyline or a raid storyline. With that being said, for the antagonist, I think they're gonna probably go the route of adding many minor antagonists here and there. For example, we might encounter some sort of a tyrant or a leader in Mericidia who might not necessarily agree with Tiamat just coming back and trying to maybe rule a place or something like that, you know? However, one prediction that I do have is Azdaja. Now, if you haven't seen my video about Azdaja, go check it out, you fucking stupid cunt! But in case you have seen it, in that video, I mentioned a few times that it might make sense for Azdaja to be not good and kind of evil. And while another Dragon Song War storyline might not work, I don't think we need to make Azdaja evil like Nidhogg, where Nidhogg was clearly evil because of the rage and pain and trauma that he experienced. Instead, Azdaja could be evil because their personality have always been evil. They just might be a more bloodthirsty or greedy kind of a dragon. Still evil, but different enough from Nidhogg that it would not feel the same. And Azdaja might be working with some of those tyrants or leaders of Mericidia and or the New World that I mentioned a few moments ago, creating thus conflict with, let's say, Tiamat, for example. Now, moving on from that, what could be the next big threat to which we can start building up? Here's my prediction. We're gonna restore the 13th. How we're gonna do that? We're going to restore the 13th by siphoning light from the first, and vice versa, siphoning darkness from the 13th to the first, thus balancing the two of them out. How we're gonna do that? That's the catch. We're gonna go to another reflection. Now, Emet-Selch mentioned other reflections in an offhand manner, and we have like no information about them, but he did mention that civilizations in other reflection are going to amaze us, and to me, that sounds like he is implying that some of the civilizations in other reflections are fairly advanced. Think like Final Fantasy XIII or Final Fantasy XV. They might be modern day civilizations in those reflections. So what I think might happen is that we might go to another reflection which is going to be modern themed. Think like Final Fantasy XV, and it might have a civil war that we have to fix. Now, why are we there? We are there to find technology which would help us siphon light from 1st to 13th and darkness from 13th to the 1st. It could also be interesting where this time around we might go to this reflection without the science and encounter, you know, quirky, funny reflections of the science in this reflection. Like, for example, we might meet a bratty Mikute girl who clearly would be a reflection of Y'shtola. All of that also leads me to my next prediction, is that we're probably going to see less of science. That's not a surprising prediction, I feel like, but I do feel like we're gonna see less of the science and more of we're gonna encounter and make more new friends. Though I do think that Graha is gonna be one of the science who will be making a new appearance, simply because everyone loves Graha. Now, moving from that, I'm gonna take a sip because my lips are fucking dry. Moving from that, we have classes. Now, my previous class prediction haven't exactly been, you might say, correct. But I'm a little bit more confident in my current class predictions, even though we're not informed at all. So I looked over other Final Fantasy games, and I looked at what weapons still haven't been used that could be put in Final Fantasy XIV, and what classes and jobs made an appearance in other games that haven't made an appearance in Final Fantasy XIV. So here's what I got. For the weapons, we have a staff, a bell, a whip, and a hammer, while for jobs or classes we have a Time Mage, Berserk, Beastmaster, Geomancer, Necromancer, Oracle, and Rune Fencer. Now, some of those I can throw out almost immediately. Necromancer is out because that will be too similar to a Reaper. Oracle, I think, would be out too, because that is too similar to Astrologian and Sage. Beastmaster is probably also going to be out, because I think a Beastmaster better suits a job that is like a blue mage, where you go out in the world and defeat monsters and capture them Pokemon style. And I would also probably throw out time mage, because I just do not see time mechanics being a thing in like dungeons and trials, because those could either be busted if Square Enix does them justice, or underwhelming if they keep them too weak. So I think Time Mage is another class that would better suit a blue mage-like position. And so we're left with Berserk, Geomancer, and Rune Fencer. So, I think the first class that is almost a certainty is a class that's going to share gear with Ninja. After they added Reaper, and we found out that they look at classes and jobs differently than we do, I think it's fair to say that the gear set that haven't received a new class in the longest time is Ninja Scouting. So to that end, I think that one of the classes is going to be a class that's going to share gear with Ninja, and for a possible weapon, we're probably looking at a whip or a staff, unless Square Enix wants to do something completely different. For a class itself, I'm not entirely sure what it might be. It might be like a Berserk with like a whip or a staff, because we already have a monk, so it cannot be like a monk with a staff. Other than that, it could be maybe a Rune Fencer. Rune Fencer was a class in Final Fantasy XI which used a two-handed sword. So it could be a Rune Fencer kind of class with like a staff or whip. But I do not think so, because since it's going to share gear with Ninja, it has to be like a faster class. And I think Berserk might work, because it might be like an unorthodox Berserk with a staff or a whip, which is all about, you know, speed. And maybe Berserk has abilities which siphon their own life to increase damage or unlock abilities. So it's kind of a class, it's a DPS class that always kind of has to stay at 50% health, otherwise you do not have access to a lot of your abilities, you know? That's an interesting idea to explore, right? Now, for the second class, it's pretty much kind of a tie, because when we look at all the other gears, we find out that the gears that did not receive a new class in the longest time are Samurai and Monk, and Casters, both of whom received the new classes all the way back in Stormblood. Now, question is, which one are gonna add? At first I thought that they might go crazy and do 2 melee classes, because with the new Summoner rework, it almost feels like Summoner is a new caster class. But then I was like, well, Monk also received a rework, and Samurai might also be receiving adjustments soon. So I think what we're probably looking at is 1 melee class and 1 caster. So who's going to be the caster? Well, it's pretty clear that my predictions are either Geomancer or Rune Fencer. So if it's going to be Geomancer, I predict that it's going to use a bell. Why do I predict that? No particular reason, but I just think it's going to be cool if you're going to be like a Geomancer class or something adjacent to Geomancer using a bell. Or, another idea, you could be a Rune Fencer with a hammer. That's my prediction. You're going to be a caster, a Rune Fencer, or Rune Mage possibly, with a hammer and a shield. And the way you're gonna use attacks your rotation is that you're going to smash out combination of runes, which is going to give you access to certain abilities, not unlike Ninja, you know? It's also gonna give us another class other than Paladin who will have Shield, which I'm down for, and it's going to allow us to add Hammer into the game. I think if we would add Hammer, like a two-handed hammer, it would be way too similar to Warrior, especially since Warrior does have hammer-like weapons. For example, like the most recent raid weapon for Warrior is actually a hammer. So I think it might be like a smaller hammer, or maybe like a whip, because you know we do have like hammers for warrior, and we have like a small hammer for one of the crafting jobs. I'm forgetting who. So it might not be a hammer. It might be just a shield that you slap. I don't know. Or maybe like a pick, which you stab onto the shield. But I'm fairly confident in saying that it's going to be like a shield and something else kind of class that you're going to be smashing out runes. Or it could always just be a geomancer, and you're gonna have a bell. Like, you know, I'm not gonna say no to a bell. Bells are cool. Now, moving on from that, Ascians. We kind of took care of all the unsundered Ascians, but there are still a few left, so I would just like to throw them your way before making my final prediction. Now, Ascians that were yet to meet, that we could be meeting in 7.0 and onward, are Ashtaroth, the one who presides over discipline and order, and we actually saw him all the way back to 2.0, I want to say, somewhere there. Then there's also Ultima, who governs over art. There is also Emet-Selch. Now, Emet-Selch is an interesting case because the first reaction you might have is that Emet-Selch died in Eureka, which is true. But then Emet-Selch also made an appearance in 2.3. So the most logical conclusion is that Emet-Selch probably raised another Emet-Selch after the initial one died at Eureka. So I'm gonna throw Emet-Selch here, and Emet-Selch, as you know, resides over medicine. That's what she does. Then there's also Halmarut, who resides over fungo and plant life, as well as I'm gonna butcher that fucking name, holy shit. Dedalapthon, who has an unknown role. Now, any of those could make an appearance in a 12-man raid that we'll be getting, or a trial storyline that we will be getting. I actually feel like Dedalapthon might make an appearance because we do not know their role, and because it's a secret, it might be something like religion or social science, which might play a role in the 12-man raid, which is going to be about the 12. Or it could be Ashtaroth, who is all about discipline and order, which once again might play into the role of the 12 in the big 24-man raid coming. I think earlier I called it the 12-man raid. That was incorrect. But yeah, with that being said, this is the end of the video, which means that I'm about to make the most ambitious prediction, as you could have tell from the thumbnail. Prediction that's going to make some people very happy and some people very mad. And I would like to stress once again that if you will feel very happy about the prediction that I'm about to make, please go to my Twitter and or Twitch channel and tell me how much you love me for making this prediction. And if you hate me for making this prediction, please go over to my Twitter and Twitch to tell me how much you hate me for making this prediction. But I predict that Zenos, our dear friend, is going to be making a comeback in 7.0. Eat my fucking asshole, he is. Oh my god, it's so obvious that he will be making a comeback. Are you fucking kidding me, dude? Like, since we ever met him and he came back from the dead, his desire was to die by our hand because he's fucking depressed as shit. And suddenly, an Endwalker, he develops a new desire. He no longer wants to die by our hands. He wishes to fight us. He even expresses sadness over being unable to defeat us the second time, which is different from what he's been saying before. And he's also shown a character growth where he now can communicate with people and he respects us as a person, not just as a tool to satisfy his desires, but as a person. He asks for our consent, for fuck's sake. And also, least you forget, because of his artificial echo, his soul kinda does not go naturally into ethereal sea, and he can inhabit any body, and he is original body, the super strong body, has been left at the edge of the universe. What does it mean? I'm gonna tell you what it means, you stupid fuck. It means that Zenos' soul is going back to Hydaelyn, Aetherius, whatever the fuck you want to call it. He's going to inhabit a different body, and in this different body, Zenos is going to meet us in 7.0 as a excited adventurer who wants to fight us and adventure with us, possibly a warrior, maybe a different class, maybe a berserk with a staff. And he is going to travel with us in this new body, be it man or woman, and by the end of expansion, he's going to tell us, or it's going to be hinted at, that this is Zenos, but in a different body. But by this point, Zenos became our friend and bonded with us. I mean, for fuck's sake, it's not fucking rocket science. You look at fucking Endwalker art, Zenos stands with the science next to us, and even Yoshida said that this art depicts all the science, which is a pretty big fucking hint that Zenos is going to be joining us properly. And another hint is that Yoshida said to pay attention to Zenos's fucking voice and avatar, which didn't really wasn't like explained or looked at in Endwalker, which means that Zenos is going to be Zenos is going to come back. You can literally eat out my cleanly shaved asshole. He is coming back. He's going to be our friend. It's going to be beautiful. Graha and him are going to fight for our hand. Eat my shit. This is my biggest prediction. I have never been wrong on predicting character comeback. I predicted Gaia's coming back all the way back in ARR. I am correct. Zenos is gonna come back. He is not dead. This is not copium. I'm not coping. This is hopium, and this is my prediction. Bye.